I would find one thing. If you're struggling with body image, pick one thing about your body that you're like, this is one thing that I absolutely love, and it can be ridiculous. I love that my nails are hard and they're not brittle. One thing that you're just uber grateful for, and focus on that. And then if you can't find that in yourself, look for it in other people, and not people that you're like, I'm trying to be like you, people who are currently like you.
Yo, what's good? I'm Jess Murillo, longtime creative, marketing professional, philosophy enthusiast, and bald girl. Living through life's experiences, I've figured out our power is in our perspective and that we are the makers of our own reality. Experiencing a full life is all about the way you look at things and how you use those ideas to create your world. On this podcast, we're going to dive into different theories, stories, and philosophies that help you peel back the layers and expose things differently. Showing up here means breaking you free from the shell that has been keeping you small. It's kind of like if a marketing teacher with a crafting hobby and passion for philosophy started a podcast. So if you can wrap your head around that, buckle up, sit back, open your mind, and get ready to break bare of the limiting mindsets that keep us from making the best of this life. This is the Breaking Bare Podcast. If you hadn't realized, the name of this podcast is a small play on the fact that I'm bald. The reason being is because losing my hair has been a profound part of my soul's evolution and a huge transformation of my ego. The experience itself was for my advancement, and it has made me a better person. September is Alopecia Awareness Month, and I wanted to interview someone who has the same diagnosis as me and finds just as much strength in their bald as I do. The thing is, a lot of people in the alopecia journey aren't quite through the woods yet, and that is absolutely fine. But so many of the conversations I have around hair loss are about how hard it is and how people wish they could be as brave to walk around without a wig as me, and how lost they feel. And those are all valid and normal feelings when you're still sorting through a recent body change. And I just kind of wanted to set the tone for the other side, a beacon through the trees, if you will. No shame about it, but more hope. So I took to Instagram to search for an alopecian who wasn't still in the wig closet, as I like to call it. And to my surprise, I found this beautiful wire sculpture of a bald bust. When I clicked on it, I found that an alopecian had sculpted the piece using the frame of her head, and she was a practicing artist. Double bonus, right? Ryan Dubinsky is a fine artist by day and an all-around badass by night. She applies her degree in fine art to her day job as an anthropology display coordinator and hopes to open up a studio of her own someday. Ryan is in total acceptance of her alopecia and even uses it to inspire her art. Talking with her was such a treat because I realized I had never spoken to someone who had gone through a similar thing as me and felt a similar way. It was nice to hear the way she expressed her experience, her outlooks, and additionally there were happy surprises, like I had no idea we were both Washingtonians. As much as I could go on, I think it's best to dive in and hear from Ryan directly. So without further ado, Ryan Dubinsky. Just give us a good rundown on who you are, where you come from, and what kind of started your journey in art and alopecia.
My name's Ryan Dubinsky. I'm from the greater Seattle area. I grew up just south of Seattle, and I loved it there. I love the rain. I love a good storm. And I got alopecia when I was 14. So I was in high school while I was there, and it wasn't fun to get alopecia and puberty and go through those two things at the same time. I don't recommend it, but it was, I don't know. I did it. I made it. If we're going to go into detail later about that, I don't know how in depth you want me to go right now. I'm just going to do it. No.
Go as far in depth as you want.
Okay. Yeah. So got alopecia in high school. I have been interested in my art my whole life. So ever since I was little, I would like make little spider webs with like grass and twigs and bring it to my parents and be like, "Look at this." And they're like, "You are going to be an artist one day." So my parents and I, like everyone who was on board knew I was going to do art in some way. And so that has always been a part of my life. And when I got alopecia and I was super sick at the same time, there wasn't much for me to do because I my sickness was impairing like my brain, so I couldn't be in school. So I was in like home hospital school kind of thing for a bit. So I just did art and it was like very easy things. Like I didn't make anything amazing during this time, but it was just like simple, like draw a circle and then make that circle look like a sphere kind of stuff. So it was just comforting while I was sick and losing my hair and getting back in the groove of things. And then I actually never took any art classes in high school because I hated the teachers. I knew them from outside of class, and I was like, I will never take a class from you. So applying to art schools, they're like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" I'm like, "Yes, I am. I know like none of my high school credits show you that, but I promise." I played volleyball all through that too, and so I wanted to go somewhere where I could have art and volleyball at the same time, but I was more concerned with the art side of things. So I looked on the East Coast because I wanted to go far. I looked in Europe and I was like, do I want to go that far? And I pulled myself back and I was like, okay, I went to school in Virginia and I got art scholarships there and
Mm.
studied fine art, computer science, and graphic design. And then I was a florist for a year. And then I got my job at Anthropology as a display coordinator, making their art installations for the display windows and interior.
Oh my god, what a fun job.
I love it.
How has your alopecia informed your art in any way?
It has, I like to use clean lines, and I've always really been drawn to line art. And I think not having my hair really helped me like sketch myself.
Mm.
And so I find myself in a lot of my art. What one because I'm the easiest model to get a hold of and I know her schedule and it's nice to be able to just have someone you can see and draw all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
not having the hair really helps you see facial structure and bone structure, and I love those lines and everyone's like I think it's so pretty and your hair's in your way a lot of the time, so I just want to be like sweep it
Mm-hmm.
back so I can see your face and I don't have to worry about that. So it's been a huge benefit in that way. And the outreach I get just from the art community of being, oh my goodness, I love your face, and having people want to sketch me and then getting that in return, and they'll sit for me if I sit for them kind of exchange.
Yeah, I've found a lot of femininity in just like bone structure and, just the curves of your face rather than like the hair and the mane. I totally get that. I want to know more about just going through this whole experience of losing your hair. So let's dive into how did that affect your creativity in a way? And I'm not saying like how did it inspire your creativity? I'm saying just the trauma that is losing your hair as a woman. And as young as you lost it, did you ever feel like it was too much for you? Like you lost a side of your creativity while you were going through the experience, like getting through it? Or was your creativity a welcomed escape? How did that kind of work out?
It was more of my creativity was kind of put on the back burner because I had such bad memory loss at the time. I couldn't have like a long running
Mm,
project. So if I was doing something, it was here and now, and this is what I needed to focus on. And because of that, I think it helped with my alopecia because I wasn't overly focused on it. There were
right.
points where people would say things, and I'd be like, that's not quite nice. Or like, I knew something about how they said it, even though what they said wasn't bad, it was off.
Right.
So I was kind of in a haze. So my memory from that time is a little blurry at parts, but there are some very clear things that when I was going through it, I was like, wow, this really sucks. Like, when you shave your head, there's like all these little splintery hairs that don't
Mm-hmm.
ship. And I remember those just being so annoying. And I took a lint roller and I was like, this is my new hairbrush. That helped a lot.
A lint roller.
A lint roller. It's the alopecian hairbrush. Um, it was weird to go through high school because I wasn't a cool kid per se, but I wasn't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
an outcast. I was just kind of like this floater. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have this group of people around me to like, hey, we're going to support you through this. It was just like one or two solid friends that were, one was actually going to college in high school, so she wasn't there, and another was struggling with addiction. So I had
Oh
people,
my
but it was
goodness.
mostly my family helping me through it to process things. And my mom was really great about calling me out on when I would kind of draw too far into myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I process things, I'm not like overly emotional. So I get quiet and then I get really, really quiet. And they're like, hey, like, you got to talk to us to let us know if something's wrong. And alopecia kind of helped me realize that I do that in extremes because I had memory loss, so I was already kind of out of it, and then the hair loss, and so processing all those things at once was a lot to like sit there. I needed to recognize that in myself that hey, there are other people outside that can help and assist with this. And
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't find that in peers my age, I found it in a lot of like older adults in my life who were fantastic and I love them.
Right. Well, yeah, because going through something in your body can be really lonely and isolating because it's like you're in this little home and it's not doing necessarily what is it's supposed to. I use quotations because I don't think there's really anything a body is or isn't supposed to be doing, but
Oh no, I was definitely
just
mad about that. You saying those words, I
yeah,
was mad about that all the time. Like, I am supposed
uh-huh.
to be able to remember this and I'm supposed to be able to function. I don't even care about my hair on my head. I just want my eyelashes to keep stuff out of my eyeballs. I was
Right.
mad. Yeah.
I get that. And you do go through this like time of resentment, I feel like, with your body, which does take a lot of energy away from things like creating. So let's talk about getting back into our creative rhythm and what were the factors that had to align for that to happen again, for you to pick up a brush or do whatever you do. When was it where you kind of moved from you go through denial and you go to anger and then you kind of go through acceptance? When did you move into acceptance and were able to like put your energies towards other things like creating and such?
I had to fully leave the area I was in. So I think it wasn't until I
Mm,
went to college that I was like, okay, fresh start.
mhm.
Because I was so caught in my patterns that it was slow. And I would plan, I had a notebook and I'm really good about planning out projects. I just never followed through with them. So I had ideas sketched out of things I wanted to create. And I didn't complete any of those ideas until I went to college because I didn't want anyone to see it that I was like so emotionally close to. I don't know. I was, for some reason, I had this mental block of it's too personal to have anyone watch me build it. And because my
Right.
parents were always like checking in on me and making sure I was okay, I felt like it kind of like put a little bit of a damper on that, even though I love them and there wasn't a problem with that. But somewhere in my mind, I was like, I need to be able to be like alone for a long period of time to make this be visually where I want it and not have to have like focus on other people's eyes.
Right. I get that though. I get like going through this stage of creative process where you're like, this is my little baby and
It's not ready to be,
nobody can look at it. Yeah.
which is so
Just like
funny.
not
I don't have
because
that
why?
anymore. I don't have that anymore. Like now I don't care. You can look at any stage and I'm like, yeah, whatever. It will get there when it gets there. But before I was like,
Right.
it has to be there in order for you to look at it.
Yeah, like you can't take any criticism. You have to feel so confident in it that you're like, no. Like Don't even give, like, I'm not even going to give this the opportunity to be criticized. I totally get that. Cool. So I love that you had to leave your environment because I think that's such a testament to, there's that analogy of like the flower and like if the flower isn't blooming or the fruit isn't blossoming or whatever, like you need to like replant the tree or the plant in order for it to thrive. You don't need to like tell it that it's stupid and that it can't produce fruit and shit like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I love that that was your answer because I think it's just a good reminder as to, if you've tried to step out of this negative scenario you found yourself in and you've tried in a few different ways and it's still not working, sometimes it's just like leaving that situation. What would you say to someone who might be going through body stuff? And it might not be alopecia, but just this idea, and I know that you're familiar with it, of feeling kind of uncomfortable in your body, like you almost don't trust it, just distrust in your body. What would you say to them as a means of holding on and toughing it out?
I would find like one thing. If you're struggling with body image, like pick one thing about your body that you're like, this is like one thing that I absolutely love. And it can be like ridiculous. I love that my nails are hard and they're not brittle. Like
Mm-hmm.
one thing that you're just uber grateful for and focus on that. And then if you can't find that in yourself, look for it in other people and not people that you're like, I'm trying to be like you, people who are currently like you. Because I feel like a lot of body image people are constantly comparing themselves. And I have a lot of friends that talk about this. They're like, Instagram makes me feel terrible because I see all these people that look like this and I'm not that. I'm like, then don't follow those kinds of people.
Right.
Everyone is somewhere, someone is like you on the internet. So follow those people and pick someone who's happy about it. They don't have to be like toxic positivity happy, but they can be
Mhm.
like just a real person that's like, hey, this is my day to day and I'm very similar to you and I love where I'm at.
Ryan, I love that about you. I love how confident you are. So like where does that come from? People, I am somebody who really believes that confidence is a skill that you develop. It's not actually like this innate quality that you have. Like any skill, like some people might be a little bit more prone to developing it faster, but I still feel like it's like this thing you have to develop. So how tell me about that skill that you have mastered, in my opinion, because you're such a confident little ball of energy. You're so dear. I want to know.
um, where does I get asked this question a lot and I feel like I never have a good answer, but I always, even though I never had a lot of friends, I always picked good friends and good people around me who knew when to like call themselves out on things.
Mm,
I am not a fan of like degrading humor because I believe if you say something enough, you're gonna fulfill it. So if you label something, you're like, oh man, I'm so fat. You're just gonna play into that, or you're like, I am so ugly. You're just gonna see that. So I think what you say to yourself in your head is like a trained thought. So you have
mhm.
to make sure that you're talking to yourself in a kind way. And I've always, I think what helped me a lot is I was put in a lot of like performance things where I was put in a place where I would be critiqued. So sports, and I did theater. So I was always taught like, if you're too scared to speak, then you're not going to be allowed to say anything because you're not going to get the role that you want. So you have to be willing to hold yourself in a posture that gives you that confidence so that you can be out there.
How has your experience with body stuff informed that going through this whole transformation? It's funny that you went through it during puberty because I always call losing my hair my second puberty. It's like I had just gotten done with puberty and then all of a sudden my body was like, yeah, there's more. And I was like, I was just feeling comfortable in you. Like, why?
Oh my God.
So So I actually kind of envy that you went through it during puberty and just got it all taken care of at once. But how has that informed your confidence, do you think?
I learned very quickly how much of a vegetable I was willing to let myself become. I guess. I was sad for like I think I was genuinely depressed for like a month and it was the worst month of anxiety and depression of my life. And I was just so nervous about what everyone thought. And I every movement, like my hat, some guy at one point in high school like snatched my hat that I was using to cover up my really big bald patches off my head while I still had hair.
Mhm.
I overreacted. I like slapped my hands on top of my head and then I yelled at him, like full on screamed, "Give me back my hat." And everyone around me, like, they kind of paused. They're like, "Whoa, that was way too big for what just happened." And I think that was one of the markers of, um, I'm probably not in a good place right now. And so that that helped me like see in myself that, hey, why do I feel this way and why do I care what other people think? And once I thought that through and I was like, why do I care? I couldn't find a good enough reason.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to not care. And so
Right.
I called up my friend. I'm like, we're chopping off my hair because it's giving me such bad anxiety trying to pretend that I have enough hair on my head to be normal that I'm just going
Mhm.
to cut it all off. And doing that helps so much.
Why?
It it wasn't like an aha moment of, oh, this is going to be perfect, but it was a huge relief. Like I was carrying all these rocks in my backpack of anxiety. What does this person think? Can they see this hole? And I like cut my hair off and I just set down the backpack and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of what normal is. I don't have to carry that around, useless rocks that I don't need.
Mm.
And then after that, I went bald for like the first little bit and then people started to comment. It was literally like a high school movie, like, should we bring her into our clique so that we can like support her? And I was like, absolutely not. I think I'm fine. And that was another moment for
Yeah.
me of, I need to be confident enough that people don't feel like that's a response that's okay. And so
Mhm.
from there, it went into like sometimes I'd wear wigs and sometimes I wouldn't. And I go bald most of the time now because that's what's comfortable and that's what I like to do. And wigs are fun and I feel beautiful in them, but I can do without them too.
I love that. I love that it's like, okay, I'm leaning into these body things and owning them instead of hiding them, and just the power that that gives you. I can totally relate. I think that's such an aha for anyone in the middle of like their body stuff. What's your favorite thing about being bald?
How easy it is to get ready in the morning. Literally, because my eyebrows are tattooed on, I don't even feel like I need to do any makeup. I just roll out of bed, I put on clothes, and like eat my breakfast, brush my teeth, and I go to work. Takes 15
I
minutes.
love that. Oh, so good. Such a good like place of acceptance you're in. What would you say is like the most misunderstood thing about being bald, about alopecia?
Everyone assuming that we have cancer, that immediate
Mhm.
response of you're dying. And I get really weird questions from that. I'm like, why would, even if I did have cancer, what makes you think that's an okay question to ask?
Right. Yeah, and I found that it's usually so they can tell you about their dying mother. It's not actually concern for you. So I've completely shifted my focus, hearing that as a place of like they really need to talk about this. Like it's not even about me anymore. Like I used to get offended and now I'm just like this person needs to talk to someone about their mother or their aunt or somebody. Like it's not even about me, so I just don't even
And
take
they
it to
think
heart.
they can trauma bond with you because you're bald and you're like, yo, I'm 15.
I love that. I think that's such an important thing to acknowledge, though, is just how different everyone's experiences with these types of things are. And, you know, while I know people can find comfort from our stories, it's also like it's different for them because they have different people in their lives who are reacting differently. They have different situations that they're coming from. And so it's that's why it's so important to just share these stories so they can find comfort and they can also find differences and better articulate what they're going through.
Yes. And I think it's about how you ask it and not what you're asking because how you ask the question makes a big difference. Because if you walk up to me and be like, what's wrong with you? I'm going to give you a response that makes you feel as bad as that question is.
What happened to you? So wait, how should people ask?
If you're curious, don't just like impose yourself. Introduce yourself before you're like, yo, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what makes you, we're strangers. I don't even know your name. So introduce yourself. Say, hi, my name's Ryan, and I noticed you don't have any hair. And I was just wondering if you felt comfortable telling me why or something along those lines, because I don't have to tell you why I'm bald, and neither does anyone else.
Right.
So if they don't want to give you an answer, you have to respect that, hey, they don't want to give an answer. But you ask it, you don't walk up to someone and go, what's wrong with you? How long do you have left to live? Like, I have
Oh
done all
my
of
god.
those.
Yeah. They're like, "So how's your chemo going?" You're like, "What?"
I those ones
Please don't.
only gotten that one from another person who has cancer, and so that I get it's like kind of joking with someone else who's fighting the same battle because you assume those are the exceptions to the question. Or a little kid that just straight up has no filter. That's also excusable.
What do you think are some productive tools that people could be using that helped you go through this whole transformation of losing hair?
For alopecia, like I was saying earlier, I would follow other people that are in a good place with their alopecia, or follow someone who's like, hey, I'm currently losing it and I'm going to record this journey kind of thing. Because there's lots of programs like Cap Kids, or like, I don't know if you've seen this, but the Baldy Revolution.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're one that I started following immediately. And I know it's women, mostly women who are shaving their head rather than alopecia, but I still was super on board with that. Like, let's be extra positive about I can still be feminine and bald. And then I got into scarves and I still love them, but not I felt like I was tying them in a very like cancery way, and I realized that, and now I'm doing it in more like
Mm,
a stylish fun kind of way. So I would look up videos of that just to like give myself something to do, because before I loved to braid hair, and the wigs I was getting at the time, you couldn't do that because the lines were like so hard and heavy.
right.
I was like, oh, I can't believe I wore that wig, but it's fine.
Hey, let's talk about your memory loss. Do doctors know the exact reason why your hair fell out? Because you had other autoimmunities, correct?
Yes, and a symptom of all of them was hair loss. So they weren't sure if one triggered the other, or like what happened in my life that triggered all of these to basically react at the same time. I had thrombocytopenia, hyperglycemia, Hashimoto's disease. I was super anemic at the time.
Wow.
And because I had all those things, no one was sure. They're like, is it one thing? Is it multiple things? And so around Christmas time is when I found my first alopecia spot. And from there, it progressed really quickly with my health, because I was a straight A student and I pretty much had photographic memory before, so I
Mm.
never had to
Oh.
study. Studying was a new thing for me, and I was like, why am I failing my classes? I'm doing what I've always
Oh.
done.
Oh my god.
And then my hair started falling out, and they're like, oh, maybe we should check that out. And so we got it, and it was diagnosed. She's like, oh, you have alopecia. You might get a couple more spots, but it doesn't look too aggressive. They offered to shoot me up with steroids, and I was like, I don't think a giant needle in the head is the answer. After that, we're like, okay, more hair's falling out, but I started like my grades started really going down, and my memory was terrible. You know how doors serve as like a physical barrier in real life? Well, when you walk through them mentally, your mind does a little switch. So when you have memory problems, walking through doors is either really helpful. That's why when you walk out of the room, you're like, what was I grabbing? You walk back out and you walk in and you remember. Well, I was doing that, but with entire classes. So I would like sit through a class, walk out, go down the hallway, be like, oh, I haven't gone to this class. And I would turn around and go sit back down in the same class, realize everyone was staring at me funny because I wasn't with the right people. And then I would walk out and be like, okay, what time of day is it? Where do I go now? And it got worse and worse and worse until they're like, yeah, we're going to pull you from school because we still couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was turning like yellowy. So I was losing hair. I was like sickly thin, mentally like what's going on. And it was all type of memory loss, like long-term, short-term, and muscle memory. So my volleyball was getting really bad too because I like didn't have coordination. I was very athletic as a person. So I had balance and I'm like, you are athletic, but why can't you do this? Because I didn't have really any muscle memory retention.
Oh my
So it
god.
was just like, why is everything in my life so hard right now? And
Yeah.
someone finally, we got a doctor in Canada that was like, I can figure it out. And we're like, great. We scheduled it. And like 1 week we were going out, he died. Like,
Oh no.
accident,
Oh
he
no.
died. I was like,
I'm sorry I laughed.
you
But
know,
I was like, oh
like,
my god.
what are the
Just like,
odds?
here's the answer,
Yeah.
not like
I
oh.
I cried. I cried really hard on that one. I was like, I don't
Dude,
care why he's
yes.
dead. Oh, I hate him for being dead. I was mad.
That's
It
terrible.
was, oh, I like when my mom got the call and she told me, both of us were just in shock. Like, you've got
Oh my god,
to
no
be here.
kidding. Are you serious?
And then finally we
Wow.
found someone, and my doctor, oh my gosh, she was amazing. She's like, this is probably why no one can figure out what's wrong with you. We're just going to do a full blood panel, and actually got my DNA tested so that she could look at my DNA. And she's like, this is why, because you have all the symptoms of Hashimoto's, but the exact opposite. So I wasn't like gaining weight, I was losing weight, which isn't typical for Hashimoto's,
Right.
because I had gone all the way from one end of my thyroid scale and then dropped all the way back down to the other, and it was bouncing to
Mm.
the extremes. And
Mhm.
so my body was shutting down trying to figure out what the problem was. So it started to like shut down my kidneys. And that's when we're like, if we don't find someone soon, Ryan's going to be in a not good place.
Oh my god.
But she got me back on track. She's like, we can fix all of these things. Let's go. And she saved my life, got me back on track. And it was all through that I was losing my hair. School sucked because I didn't have photographic memory, but even after like recovering mentally, I never got that back. So I had to like relearn how to learn, and that was so painful for me. I got to tell you, studying sucks. I wish I could look
Yeah.
at things and remember them.
Oh, that's tragic though. Like how I mean, you had to have felt like a prisoner, like in your body, like a complete stranger all of a sudden.
It was it wasn't like I was a prisoner, but I was like, I feel like I can't express myself. So maybe yeah, I was like trapped because I knew what was going on, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I
Right.
didn't have the words to describe what was going on because there really aren't any.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit
Do it.
because I feel like that was like a complete test of faith. And so, how has any type of spirituality like played a part in your recovery uh to like total acceptance of all of this?
So at the time, it's kind of funny. I grew up Mormon,
Uh-huh.
and at the time, I was really struggling with how people within my ward were treating each other. So it's not even that it
Mhm.
was about faith, but I was tying the faith to them. I was like, if this is the people and how they treat each other in my family that are believing in this, do I want to believe in this? And it was weird time because I was like, I do believe in God, and if I die, like I go somewhere for sure. But I was also really torn up about the belief that I was raised in. So it was a conflict of what type of like faith do I have and what do I want to believe? But I kept it very internal because I was worried about what my parents and my relatives would think who were still in the church. And so I was always like, this is what I'm supposed to do. These are the steps. But my faith was mostly in like my doctors and like kind of saying, "Hey God, if you could help me out, that would be nice." Kind of thing instead
Mm.
of a true, I think, typical Christian faith where it's all in God's hands. And I would say he only gives you what you can take. And I'm like, but he gives people more than they can take. And that's why they take themselves out of the equation. It was a mixture of like, I can do this, but I know I need like to believe in something for myself to get through it.
Mm. On a soul level, how do you think that's like evolved from all of this?
How do I think my soul?
Yeah, because I like noticed that when all of this happened, for me, I really stopped looking at people at face value, which I'd always been kind of like a deep person, but I feel like when I lost my hair, I was kind of clouded by ego. I had just gotten out of college. I felt like I was really comfortable in my body. Like I thought I was very attractive. Like I was a little bit vain. And when it all kind of came out and just like I don't know, I got really depressed, all my hair fell out and stuff like that. I went back to I just don't look at people for what they look like anymore. It's like you could see right through people almost. It's almost like a superpower. It's just like, dude, I see all of this bullshit that you got going on and like I'm going to love you for the little part of you that showed me, who you actually are type of a thing. So like how has alopecia and all of these conditions that you've unfortunately experienced, like how has it kind of grown your soul on a spiritual level, I guess?
Well, I learned about superficial people very quickly and those who wanted me for my looks. And then, even while I was sick, those who wanted to be my friend so that they could say they were the one who supported me through it. And I recognized that immediately like, well, wait, I'm just being used. This is not okay. And I'm no longer going to reach out or associate with you because that's not an okay way to go about helping someone when they're in need. It's not about you. But I think, I don't know, if you describe a soul as like an inner light, it went from being like someone who was like, I was pretty solid with who I was, but I wasn't like, this is me, like out there. And I think with alopecia, it definitely was like, I need to be happy with who I am and let my inner light shine out enough that I can feel protected from all these things. Because I feel like people see that you're genuine and they'll realize you don't play those kinds of games. So I notice I
Mhm.
don't ever draw those kinds of people to me. When we do have conversations, I think as people, we both realize, like, hey, you're not my kind of person because you're kind of like letting your aura and be out there of like, this is who I am and what I believe in for myself and what the standards I hold other people to.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I feel like it's easier to go deeper with people. It's like you don't even attract the relationships that are surface value because people just know that if you're already living out loud, like with no wig, or if you're out of the wig closet, as I like to say, like they can't even show themselves. You're just a mirror that reflects what they're unwilling to expand into. Let's see. Let's talk about your art more. What do you want to plug on your art? Like what's new in your world and our world and what are you super excited about? I want to preface that I found you because I can't remember what I searched, but your sculpture of your beautiful face came up. Oh my god, it's such a beautiful sculpture.
Thank
I like
you.
want to buy it. And what are you just like really excited about in your art worlds? I want to hear.
I'm going to be doing more wire face sculpture stuff with not just me, but I'm trying to make it so that it's more of a wearable art so that I can sell it to others and maybe they have that option to display it and or wear it. So I'm experimenting with the best kind of wire and the best ways to have that stored and soldered together so that people can have that ability. So I'm moving more towards the fine art, like installation art type And that's always what I've wanted to do. My goal is to have my own studio that I sell my art out of one day. Either that, or I really like Anthropologie as a company. I want to be the person that comes up with the ideas in their windows.
That'd be so cool.
So I don't know how to get there, but I'll figure it out. But I think I want those to be done in tandem if they can.
If people were to leave with only one takeaway, what would you want them to leave with?
If you're struggling, reach out. There is a community out there that's willing to support you and give you feedback. I get questions asked through all sorts of social medias all the time from other alopecians. Like, I'm happy to answer, and I'm sure there's so many more of us that are like, absolutely, like, you need help, I will be there to help. And I know it's a private community, and a lot of people tend to be in wigs so you can't tell, but reach out. Everyone is out there and they're ready to help because we're freaking gorgeous and I love it.
Oh my god. Well, I love you and thanks for talking with me. And where can everyone follow you?
My Instagram is RyanDuby23, and I think all of my social medias are RyanDuby23 except for my art account, but they're both linked in each other's profiles, so I have everything attached. If you want to find something, there's a link tree like thing in my bio that will take you to wherever.
I just think your experience can bring so much peace to people who might be experiencing something. And that is Ryan. Don't you love her outlook on life? Her tenacity and resilience are inspiring. And you guys, she's so talented. I linked her profile in the show notes, so check her out. All right, beautiful souls, that's all I have for you this week. Can you believe it's October already? In that case, I'll see you next month on the Breaking Bear podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to the Breaking Bear podcast. If you could do me a solid and think of one person in your life who needs this message, could you forward this episode to them with a loving note referencing why you think they should hear this and that you're thinking of them? You would absolutely make my life and be contributing to Serious Good Vibes. My goal and vision for this podcast is to help empower people by facilitating connections and sharing perspectives, so people don't feel so alone in their experience. But I cannot do that without your help in spreading the word. There's a reason you heard this today. So if it raised your vibe, then this is a perfect opportunity to spread love and give the gift of higher consciousness. Thanks again for listening, and as always, I am sending you so much love. I know I just said vibes like 3 times, but I meant it each time. Anyway, hope to hear from you soon, and until next time.